السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. عدنا إليكم من جديد بحلقة النهاردة تخص الشباب برضو. الحمد لله بفضل الله غطينا المؤتمر بتاع توظيف الشباب في دولة الكويت. النهاردة هنغطي مؤتمر تمكين الشباب. طيب عايزين نقول برضو المواعيد من يوم 23 ل 24/10. عندك فرصة إن أنت تيجي بكرة لما تشوف الحلقة دي من الساعة 6 لغاية الساعة 9:30. أنصح لكل الشباب اللي مقبل على المشاريع، وده محتوانا. إحنا قلنا نيجي نغطي المحتوى النهاردة أو السبيتش اللي هتتعمل النهاردة في ريجنسي هوتيل، وبكرة برضه في نفس الميعاد. ده هيبقى مع الرئيس التنفيذي سابقا لموقع علي بابا، وانتوا عارفين يعني ايه موقع علي بابا. هو النهارده هنحاول نغطي اجزاء من السبيتش اللي هتتقال مع برضو هيبقوا هم 2 ضيوف، واعتقد بكره برضو هيبقى هم موجودين. لو انت ما لحقتش النهارده تيجي بكره حضرتك من الساعه 6 لغايه الساعه 9:30. في برضو حمد، ده اللي مسؤول عن الموقع بتاع جاهز. فيعني هتلاقي السبيتش دي هتفيد بكل شاب او اي حد مقبل على مشروع من المشاريع، وبالذات عايز يبدأ يفتح مشروع بتاعه اونلاين. ده اللي احنا بنتكلم عليه بقالنا فترة، وبنحاول نغطي منه اجزاء زي ما حضراتكم النهاردة برضو هنحاول نغطي. واعتقد برضو انا جاي عشان استفاد. مفيش لو حتى انت شاب سنك صغير او شاب في الثلاثينات او الاربعينات او الخمسينات هتستفاد، لان دول عندهم تجربة، وما بقاش رئيس تنفيذي من الهوا. لا، اكيد تعب وعنده خبرات، فهو اكيد هيتكلم عليها النهارده. هنشوف النهارده ونبدأ نقول لكم هو لسه.
To do it 3 years ago, and there were a lot of different conferences that were supposed to be going on. This is the only one where after the pandemic, I said, hey, this is an event I really want to do, so I reached out again to all the organizers, and we managed to make this happen. Because my favorite type of audience to speak to is young entrepreneurs. And because that's, I think, the group that can learn the most from the story I'm about to tell, which is the story of Alibaba in China and its growth from an apartment into a global company. So I've been lucky enough to speak in 40 countries now, and I've always wanted to speak here because although I visited once for 24 hours a few years ago, now I'm getting a chance to meet people, learn about the real Kuwait, and I'm really inspired by what I've heard so far. So thank you for having me here. So today I'm going to talk about Alibaba and the 40 lessons. Okay. So if you can, while we get the other clicker, if you can just advance the slide when I say next slide. So can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so I'll start with a question. And the question is, where will the next Facebook come from? So next. Or where will the next Amazon come from? Yeah. And the next, where will the next Google come from? And then how about where will the next Alibaba come from? Well, I'm here to tell you that yes, it can come from right here in Kuwait, and I honestly believe that. And I think anybody can come up here and tell you that, but because I've seen a company grow from a small town in China into a global company, I think, well, hopefully today, after I give my talk, you'll have more faith that that's in fact possible. So next slide, please. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I worked at Alibaba for 8 years, and when I left the company, I sat down with the founder, Jack Ma. And Jack Ma was a teacher before, and I said, Jack, I've seen a really inspiring story. I'd love to go share this with young entrepreneurs around the world. Are you okay if I write a book or make a documentary film to tell the story? And Jack said, you know what, Porter? You're an American who worked in the company. You saw both sides of the experience. So that's a great idea. We have a responsibility to share the story with others. Well, so then after that, I asked him, is it okay? You need to understand, I'm going to tell the good and the bad, the successes and the mistakes. Are you okay with that? And he said, Porter, I trust you. Tell the story however you want because you understand the story better than most people. So after I left Alibaba, I made a documentary film called Crocodile in the Yangtze. And at the end of this talk, I'm going to explain to you how you can watch it for free. I'll give you a code if you want to watch the documentary of how Alibaba grew. Then I wrote a book about my experience working inside Alibaba called Alibaba's World. And then after that, I had traveled to a lot of different countries, and I realized I wanted to expand beyond Alibaba and beyond just China. So I wrote another book called 6 Billion Shoppers about e-commerce in emerging markets. And as I've gone around the world to speak to audiences, the first question people usually ask me is, what was it like as an American working inside a Chinese company? And I have to explain to people it was really just like any other company. We had meetings just like anyone else. And fortunately, I have a video clip from my film to show you what a typical Alibaba meeting was like. So please, if we could show the first video, it's a clip from a meeting I attended back in 2009.
It was an amazing feeling to look around Yellow Dragon Stadium and see that our team had grown to fill 16,000 seats. It was hard to believe that this was the same Chinese internet company I joined 10 years earlier, just as it moved out of a small apartment. And leading us through our improbable journey was this former English teacher, Jack Ma. In 1999, he and 17 friends had started Alibaba.com in his apartment. I greeted Jack as he walked in. I had worked as a vice president in his company for nearly 10 years as our team survived the internet bubble, fought a war with eBay, and managed to build China's first global internet company. I settled into my seat and wondered, how would Jack address us on this important night? And then, just like any other billionaire in the same situation, Jack took the stage.
Okay, so that was Jack in a costume there. As you can see, it was not like a typical company. It was a pretty interesting place to work, and Jack Ma was an interesting character to work for. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jack. If we can go back one slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So let me tell you the story about Jack Ma. So Jack grew up in the city of Hangzhou, China, which is famous for a beautiful lake in the middle of the city. But he grew up at a time when China was not yet fully open to the world. But it was one of the few cities in China where foreign tourists were allowed to come and visit. And Jack Ma, from an early age, was interested in international cultures, interested in English language, and so he would make friends with foreigners who came to visit the lake, and he'd walk around with them, and he'd practice English, but at the same time he's learning about different cultures and different people. So in a way, it's a little bit reverse of what I've heard in Kuwait, because I heard in Kuwait so many people go out to different countries, get an education, and then come back bringing their ideas from all around the world. Jack Ma was kind of the reverse. He was in Hangzhou, and different ideas from around the world came to him. And I think that gave him a different mindset than most people in China, and it gave him a very global mindset. And so I was, when I joined Alibaba in 2000, I had done a lot of travel in China. I had ridden a bicycle for 2 months through the countryside, across the country, seen the villages, seen how people were living, and China was even then still a very poor country. So it was very hard to believe that this school teacher, Jack Ma, was going to start a company that would transform the countryside of China, transform the economy, empower small, medium-sized businesses by building a platform for e-commerce. But as the pioneer for e-commerce in China, that's exactly what he did. And China went from a country with very poor sort of retail infrastructure, not many opportunities for people to start shops, to then, this is a scene from the Singles Day shopping festival in China a few years ago, where celebrities would come in. James Bond even came. I think Katy Perry came one year. And it was a huge shopping festival, and the numbers really sort of blow people away when they see them. So in a couple of years ago, in 2021, the numbers were $84 billion of goods were sold on Alibaba's websites over an 11-day period. That's about 10 times the online sales of Black Friday in the US. And throughout all of China, the shopping festival that Alibaba had started, $130 billion of sales were done over 11 days. So a big point of that too is that almost all of it was done on smartphones. So the smartphone brought the internet to people and put a shopping mall in everyone's pocket. So how did this happen? Well, I'm going to talk. Okay, having an issue with the clicker. So I'm going to talk today about the rise of Alibaba, the e-commerce boom in emerging markets, and then I'm going to talk about Alibaba and the 40 lessons for entrepreneurs. So just the lessons that I learned seeing this that I'm going to share with folks, I think the most important lessons from my experience there. So I want to talk a little bit though about how e-commerce evolved in China. People spend a lot of time studying the US and studying Amazon, studying eBay, and I'm from the US, and so all the case studies people talk about there are US internet companies. But sometimes I think that's a mistake, because Alibaba developed in a very different way from the US. So while you're sitting here in Kuwait, it's important to, study the US internet companies, but also study the companies in China and other emerging markets. And I'm going to talk about how retail evolved in the US to lead to Amazon. So this is Colorado, my home state. You know, retail in Colorado like 200 years ago was just little small shops, little general stores where people would sell goods and take a 50% profit margin. And over the years, retail in the US evolved from that into shopping malls, big box retailers, and then when Amazon came along, it looked at companies like Walmart and said, okay, we're going to take this big scale of a company like Walmart and just add the internet to it. Instead of having a physical store, we're going to put the store online. So it was a very easy evolutionary step to go from Walmart to Amazon. And so when I was living in China, so if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so when I was living in China in 2000, the question was, who's going to win? Is it going to be Amazon or eBay? Who's eventually going to ultimately take over China? But Jack Ma had different ideas because he had seen that e-commerce in Asia would take a different path than it took in the US. And so in Asia, people were kind of shopping from these small little retailers, very fragmented, but there wasn't the 100 years of evolution of retail. Basically, China was going from communism and tiny little retailers to suddenly the internet arriving. And so Jack Ma, in 1999, he gathered his team together and he had a vision for them of how to use the internet to create an e-commerce platform. But at that time, I was living in Beijing and people laid out a lot of reasons why e-commerce would never work in China. They said first, less than 1% of people in China were using the internet. There were not credit cards, and when people looked at e-commerce in the US, they said, oh, well, you needed credit cards to build e-commerce, and China doesn't even have credit cards. Then there's poor logistics, government controls of the internet, and then there was a problem that people in China didn't trust strangers to do business online. So there wasn't trust between individual buyers and sellers, and people said, how are you ever going to do e-commerce without trust? And then finally they said, well, all the internet experts are in Silicon Valley, so it's not possible for us to create an e-commerce company with our team in China. So in Kuwait, I'm sure we're with a group of entrepreneurs here, but I'm sure there are some people who say, well, our country's too small, or we're too fragmented. You have to be in a big country, or we don't have enough engineers here, or there's always going to be different problems. And then the challenge for entrepreneurs is to face those problems and find solutions. And so I'm going to show you a little video clip now of the meeting that Jack Ma had on the very first day that he started Alibaba, because he was crazy enough to think they were doing something historic, so they videotaped the speech he gave. And there's subtitles at the bottom, so if you're sitting behind someone, you might have to stand up a little or move your head to see the subtitles, because his speech is in Chinese, but you can read the subtitles to understand what he was saying to his team. So if we could please show this second video, that would be great.
5年的时候，我记得我做出的决定，我自己给自己讲，我能改变自己是一辈子所从事的事业。而今天，我想把大家请过来，跟大家共同探讨以后至少5年、10年我们要做的事情。那么阿里巴巴我们将做成怎么样？我想，从黄页的时候我就提过，黄页所要瞄准的对象不是国内站，而是国际站。我们所有的竞争对手不在于中国，而在于美国的规模。如果说第一，我们把阿里巴巴定位，就把它作为国际战略，我们不要把它定位是国内战略。第二个呢，我想就是我们学会硅谷的那种平静。如果说我们是早上8点钟下班，8点上班，5点钟下班，这个不是搞高科技。这个绝对不是我们阿里巴巴的节目。如果是我们有这种精神，反正我上班了，8点钟上班，5点钟下班 ，OK， 该继续上班。人家美国人强就强它的硬件，强就强这个系统建设这一方面全是不到。但是玩信息玩反了，中国人脑袋绝不比他们差。我们在座的所有人的脑袋绝不比他们差。这就是我们敢跟美国人斗的这个东西，我们绝对敢斗。如果我们是好的 team。好的团队，我们自己知道我们想做什么，我们想干些什么的时候，我相信我们是可以赢大胜。我们能够赢政府机构，我们能够赢其他很多的民营企业、大人工企业的时候，凭的是我们的精神、我们的意识、我们的创新概念，以及我们的拼劲才能去斗。否则的话，跟他们有什么区别呢？谁都知道，应该那是个炮。 我刚才讲的危机感的，因为那个泡沫是越来越厉害，什么时候破，然后把股票掉了，哎，eBay 股票会涨。那么有一天 eBay 股票涨了以后，可能阿里巴巴社区的股票涨，所以不要担心。我觉得 Internet 的梦不会破，这个泡沫不会破，我们为后面的3、5年所付出的代价是非常惨重的。只有这样惨重的代价，才会引导我们未来取得的成功。那么目标是2002年，阿里巴巴上市。
All right, so you can see Jack Ma's determination. Even the first day he sat with his team, the confidence and determination he had. If you couldn't see everything clearly, again, I'm going to share with you how to watch the whole film for free at the end, so you can watch it again. Next slide, please. So, from day one, Jack Ma had a global vision, and that's why he chose the name Alibaba. So it's funny, wherever I go in the Middle East or the Gulf region, everyone claims Alibaba is their own story. But it's a story that people know all around the world. I grew up, when someone said Alibaba, I even had heard it before. And the reason he chose that name is he thought it'd be open sesame for SMEs for treasure. And so the idea was the internet would unlock treasure for people. And so he chose a name that would be recognized globally. Next slide. Yeah, so Alibaba started really, the story was, it started as a business-to-business website for global trade. So really, if you're familiar with, this is one of the best countries for it. I visited the old souk the last time I was here, and it's just that way of doing business where you meet with people and trade and buy and sell items. That traditional way of commerce was also going on in China. And so what Jack Ma wanted to do was take that business-to-business marketplace, just like you'd find in the old souk, and put it online. Next slide. And so in China, when Alibaba started, you had trade shows and people would have a booth and they would sell their products. If you've ever been to China to source products, you know what I'm talking about. You go to China, visit a trade show, and hope to meet someone while you're there. But that's a very expensive process. You don't know if you're going to find the right partner or find the right products. It's very stressful because you have a limited amount of time to find someone to supply you. And as I mentioned, the way that these people did business was they would talk and they would negotiate and haggle. The price would start high and then you sit down and have tea, build a relationship, and the price for the products would come down as you built trust and built a relationship. And so with Alibaba, all of our competitors were making platforms that were supposed to be, you push a button and then 10,000 tennis rackets show up at your door. But if you've ever done international trade, you realize that's not how business works. It's about more than just a platform for clicking and things come to your door. It's about negotiating all sorts of different variables. So we made Alibaba a very social website, and we recognized and respected that. In China there's a saying, it's better to be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. So all these entrepreneurs, they didn't want to be just a little person in a big company. They wanted to have their own business no matter what the item was, and they wanted to have power and be empowered and not be controlled. And all the Western websites we competed with were trying to control the sellers. So what we did was we brought the human experience online. And we let people chat, we let them negotiate. We didn't yet charge money, but we just let people come online and sort of get to know each other the same way they would at the old souk or at a trade show in China. And what ultimately happened was enough people came onto Alibaba's website, built up shops, built businesses, and once they started to make money on the business, we decided, okay, now's our chance to make money. And so the service was free for 3 years, and then finally we said, if you want to have a more beautiful platform, you want to have more products listed, then you can pay us a fee and you'll have an even more beautiful booth. So we started free, we didn't know how we were going to make money, And finally, we started to charge for services once our users made money. And after about 3 or 4 years, Alibaba finally became profitable. And Jack Ma pulled me into the room at about that time, and he said, Porter, there's a secret project I want to tell you about. We're not just going to be for business-to-business websites. We are going to start a consumer website, and we are going to go head-to-head and declare war on eBay. Because at that time, a company, eBay, was getting very aggressive into China. And Jack Ma realized that these small businesses also would overlap with ours, and that ultimately we would be competing with eBay. So he did something at the time which seemed crazy, is he said, we're going to take on and compete with a US internet giant. And nobody in China or in the West at the time believed that was possible. They thought there's no way you can beat a huge US internet company when you're just a little Chinese company. But Jack Ma had a sort of famous saying. He said, eBay is a shark in the ocean, Alibaba is a crocodile in the Yangtze River. If we fight in the ocean, we'll lose, but if we fight in the river, we'll win. And really what that meant was, we understand our local conditions, eBay doesn't, so we can beat eBay by serving our customers better. And I'm sure here in the Gulf region, you have a much better sense of your customers than these big internet giants from around the world. So there's an opportunity in the same way to build something really local that fits the local market. And eBay was focused on collectibles. And the collectible market in China, there wasn't a market for it because nobody had anything to collect. China was coming out of poverty. So eBay built up their marketplace in China exactly the same way they did in the US. But we realized that what China really needed was a marketplace for the small businesses, just the people who worked in a soup to put their business online. Next slide, please. And so the same folks you'd see selling as you walk by them in